Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our IENTA webinar series. Today we have seed saving and saving our stories. I've got two guests invited, Andi Murphy, who's joined us, and Freddie, who is on his way. My name is Kelly Hepler. I am the agritourism specialist for IENTA. I have been working with them since last June and was brought in to work to develop agritourism programs within Indian country. I have been working in agritourism for 25 years in the state of Colorado and have won a few awards from the state for my work. Next slide. So just a little intro on IENTA. IENTA's mission is to define, introduce, grow, and sustain American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian tourism that honors traditions and values. Next slide. For those of you who are unfamiliar with IENTA, IENTA provides the technical assistance and training needed to keep our communities engaged in tourism and hospitality, facilitate conversations on economic and cultural importance of a healthy hospitality industry, highlight the importance of visiting authentic American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian destinations, and to generate awareness, interest, and demand for these destinations to domestic and international travelers, the travel trade, and media. With distinctive cultural heritage, culinary, and agritourism offerings available throughout America's indigenous lands, tourism provides strong economic benefits for these communities. Next slide. So what is agritourism? This, folks, is one sentence, so bear with me if I pass out from not breathing enough. Agritourism is the practice of engaging in activities, events, and services that have been provided to consumers for recreational, entertainment, or educational purposes at a farm, ranch, or other agricultural, horticultural, or agribusiness operation to experience, learn about, and participate in various facets of the agricultural industry, culinary pursuits, natural resources, and heritage. Thank you very much, Bianca. Next slide. So here with me today, I have two speakers lined up. We're still waiting for one of them, but right now Andi Murphy has joined us. Andi is a producer at Native America Calling and the host of the award-winning Toasted Sister podcast. Andi is Navajo from Crown Point, New Mexico, and lives in Albuquerque. She is a producer for Native America Calling, a national show about Native issues and topics, and the 2021-2022 Civil Eats Indigenous Foodways Fellow. Just this past week, Andi was named one of the 40 under 40 honorees at RES 2023. That was a heck of a party, wasn't it, Andi? It was a great food and a great a way to honor these young people. When she is not producing, podcasting, or doing civil eats, writing, and photography, she cooks, challenges herself in the kitchen, and gives her furry friends, tabby cats named Carrot and Lucifer, notice the creative spelling there, gives her furry friends the best life. Next slide. Also joining us today, we hope, will be chef and author Freddie Bitsoie, former executive chef for the Mitzitam Native Foods Cafe at the National Museum of the American Indian in DC. He is also the co-author of New Native Kitchen, celebrating modern recipes of the American Indian, and will be opening FJ Bits Cafe later this summer. Freddie is Navajo, born in Utah to Diné parents, and frequently moved between Albuquerque's Sandia Mountains and California. He attended the University of New Mexico, majoring in cultural anthropology with a minor in art history before attending culinary school in Scottsdale, Arizona. Freddie loves the connections between anthropology and culinary arts and the pathways that can be followed between the two. Hopefully we'll be hearing from Freddie. Next slide. Just wanted to give you a quick rundown on what exactly is seed saving and food sovereignty. Seed saving is the practice of collecting and preserving seeds from plants for use in future planting. This practice is an important component of food sovereignty, which refers to the right of people to control their own food systems, including the ability to produce, access, and consume healthy and culturally appropriate food. Part of the reason we're talking about this today is because it's a very important part of agritourism. The efforts to get food sovereignty and self-governance with native food systems into the Farm Bill are being considered now. Agritourism is a way to share that importance with your tribal communities. Okay, next slide. We're going to turn it over here to Andi in just a minute. So here is Andi Murphy. You can see the graphics of the on the left are both her own creations, and she is a producer at Native American Calling, which is a radio station podcast that you will find very interesting. So Andi, welcome and thank you for joining us. I have a question for you, and then I'm going to turn it over for you to tell us about some of your expertise. On your podcast, you have interviewed a number of recognized chefs, seed savers, and people watching the food sovereignty movement. You are also in the kitchen regularly yourself. We see that through photos on your Facebook page and etc. What have been some of your insights and aha moments about the importance of seeds and food sovereignty?
Yeah, well, you know, the whole seed keeping movement is something that, of course, is very important to food sovereignty. I mean, you know, it's really, you know, getting a hold of some of these old seeds that have been maybe taken from communities. Maybe they've been stored away by elders who now feel it's about time to have these seeds coming back into the community. I mean, these seed keepers, and there are a lot of them out there who are working in individual farms and you know, on the tribal level as well, to restock the community with a lot of you know, produce that had been with us from you know, time immemorial, that we had, you know, curated to our environments and our diets and our needs and to our palate. And you know, bringing these back now just really enhances the you know, the flavors that we have available to us. And you know, it you know, makes you know, a meal, I guess, that much more substantial when the produce is coming from traditional seeds that have a really important story. And you know, seed keepers like the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network, Sierra Seeds with Rowan White, they do a lot of work in that area, and they do a lot of repatriation or rematriation work with seeds, and that's you know, pretty awesome stories to hear about. I just had Rowan White on Native America Calling just a couple weeks ago to talk about her work, and she mentioned a squash from Taos Pueblo that I was there to witness, you know, actual rematriation. She had found the seed and kind of noticed that it was, you know, sort of like a Southwest sort of you know, seed and squash. And so she did a little bit of research and found out that it came from Taos Pueblo. And, you know, she grew it out and brought down to Taos, New Mexico, a bag of seeds and a fully grown squash to the Pueblo. And, you know, the Pueblos, the elders there haven't seen that squash in a very long time. So that was, you know, really awesome to witness. So yeah, definitely, seed saving is very important to the food sovereignty movement. And there's lots of, they don't call this the food sovereignty movement for nothing, because there's lots of different areas where folks are really making really good, big moves to advance, our culinary arts and our food sovereignty.
Right. So Andy, tell me, with bringing those seeds back and the elders, that had to be a very emotional experience. And it's not just about the food, is it? There's more to it than that.
Yeah, definitely. It's about, bringing back some of these stories that are connected with these seeds, and bringing back some of the dishes that, are traditionally made from these different produce, traditional produce. So, it's reconnecting in a bunch of different levels in the Native community.
Right. So are some of these seeds, would you say some of them are considered sacred and are shared only within the tribal community, or are they seeds that anybody can get? Tell me, do you know about that at all with your experience?
Well, there's definitely not a lot of talks about like putting patents on
Right.
seeds, unless you go down to like places in Mexico where, there's a lot of indigenous communities who are having issues with different, companies putting patents on corn and, really kind of squeezing out the traditional growing and agriculture connected to indigenous corn. Um, in the past, I think there were a lot of seeds that were taken from the communities, because around, in the past, I think people thought that Native Americans were going to die out. And so let's take as many pictures, as many, things that we can store away in the museum, and let's take some seeds that we can put in our catalogs, and so we can have them as soon as in case like all the natives died, so that was kind of part of the whole rematriation work that folks like Rowan White do. They go into these university catalogs, these museums, and kind of look at what's there, and for seeds, like grow them out and bring them back to their traditional homes and territories, and reconnect them with the communities. But seed saving, I think, is sort of a a lot of people can become seed keepers and seed savers, and it's just really knowing who else has seeds, knowing all kinds of different farmers and growers in the area, and just creating a whole network of farmers and other seed keepers. Trading seeds, such a big part of all of this work. I mean, it's like every other seed keeper has a big, huge database that they're keeping on their own, and then and then the seed swapping and information change happens. So it's really hard to keep up where some of these seeds come from. But I don't think there's like any kind of ownership on a lot of these seeds.
I was reading an article that had Aaron Loudon in it. He's with the Acoma Pueblo, and he has been trying to bring back their corn seeds. And in the article, he's brought back many of the varieties. Apparently in 1979, people came in and took all their seeds. And in some cases, they bought the seeds. In some cases, they just took them. And off they went into the winds of the world. And so he's been trying to find these seeds. And in the article, it said he still had 12 varieties or 12 types of these seeds that he was still trying to bring back to have a full collection like they had in 1979, and teaching the people at the Acoma Pueblo about growing this corn and using these seeds. So that's an important part of the food sovereignty piece. And I know you've interviewed people with regard to that. Can you tell us a little bit about how food sovereignty impacts your Native tribal community?
Yeah, well, I'm from the Navajo Nation, and there's I think well, let's see. I mean, that's such a big question.
It is.
I mean, I think
Sorry about
that that impact is something that a lot of us in this whole movement are working for. There's on the tribal level and federal level, there's a lot of I think the description for this program mentioned the Farm Bill. On that level, there's policymakers and politicians and tribal leaders who are trying to change policy, create law, protect natural, areas, sacred areas, to protect the foods that are there, to protect the resources that some of our agriculture and our wild foods and sacred foods need. So there's, that kind of work that's happening there. And then, there's the nonprofit level of work. There's a handful of really big nonprofits that are really, the big dogs in the whole Native American food movement, who are, also have their hand in policy change.
Right.
And Freddie Bitsoie is part of one of them, Native, or the
Yes.
food labs, with the sous chef. And, they're working to make an impact in Native communities through education, through maybe different funding opportunities for entrepreneurs and tribal owned, food companies and farms. And then maybe like on the a much smaller, like grassroots level, there are individuals and small groups that are really, doing the work from, the ground. They're the individual farmers who are, really pushing out all of this product so that people could actually have these things to eat and introduce into their own kitchens. And I think the whole the biggest impact we all hope to have is just reconnecting with these foods, of course, and also changing our diets and to bring back to a healthier holistic way of eating. And so there's all these different levels of food sovereignty we can kind of look at. And I think one of the most important things I learned doing all the work that I've done and following all of the following this movement for the last decade is that individual part of food sovereignty. A lot of this doesn't mean anything if individuals don't know how to cook with these ingredients, or if they're not hungry and craving for these foods. And if they don't have a palate that's welcoming for some of these foods and flavors.
Right. So Andi, speaking of food and cooking and et cetera, I know pizza is probably not considered part of the indigenous diet unless it's made a particular way. And I see Freddie's giggling at me about this. Freddie has quite a sense of humor. I got to meet him at Res, and we'll hear from Freddie in a moment, but I have a real quick question. You just had someone in your neighborhood and you interviewed him on your show a couple of weeks ago, open a pizza place. I listened to the podcast and I was really intrigued by the idea that how do you live in a community that doesn't have a pizza place? You didn't, and so tell me about how exciting that was to get that happening in your community.
Right. Yeah. So, Victoria Largo is a resident of Crown Point, and that's my hometown, Crown Point, New Mexico. And we're, a 3,000, 4,000, population. That's our
Wow.
population.
And
And
not
we
have
don't have
pizza. Okay.
we don't have a single restaurant, but for the last almost 30 years, she had been making pizza out of her home. And her story is just one that should be turned into a movie. I mean, she's gone through so much, and half of that battle, of course, was just the jurisdiction, checkerboard area, navigating that, finding actual real estate for a business, because in our town there's like one kind of shopping center, and that's it.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's not like the city here where, a restaurant or a place goes out of business and then, hey, it's for rent, I'm going to go in there and start a business. It's not
Right.
like that. All we have is a lot of tribal businesses and schools and, and that kind of real estate, but no like entrepreneurship, real estate like that.
Right.
So, I know pizza is not like an indigenous ingredient, and but it's also part of that whole food sovereignty movement. It's
Right.
having Navajo ownership of a food business, and
Right.
creating a place, so families can have pizza and have a place to sit down and and have good pizza. I mean, all kinds of stuff happens at a pizza restaurant, right?
Yeah, and you can put all
Parties
kinds of things
and
on a pizza. So
family gathering and stuff like that. So now she created that place for Crown Point, and I hear it's
nice.
really popular now. But she's the first Native restaurant owner, I think, in the last, I don't know, since my parents were young, in the last like 40, 50 years. Who's actually been successful in opening up a restaurant. So
Yeah.
I know I get a lot of sometimes I get pushback about I talk about, hey, this person opened a restaurant and they're Native, and they're like, well, is pizza indigenous? Is it made out of corn? Or I mean, that's that I don't like those kind of questions and pushback, because we can have a hamburger restaurant and a pizza restaurant, be part of our movement here, because it's Native owned, and it adds to that whole, it adds to tribal economy, which
Right.
which is part of the whole movement, which is very important for our communities, of course.
Great. So thank you very much, Andy. We're going to have Q&A towards the end here. So folks, if you're thinking of any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, but we're going to move on now. Andy, thank you so much. I really enjoy your podcast. Folks, she has some really interesting guests, some really cool things going on. And I would encourage you to check her out. It's really fun. And her artwork, you can get those on t-shirts and things too. So join the movement, folks. Okay, next we're going to hear from Freddie Bitsoie. And I had the pleasure, as I mentioned, of meeting Freddie at Res 2023 about a week and a half. I guess it was just last week, huh, Freddie? And
it's like days ago.
yeah, I'm still trying to recover from all the excitement and the cool part and the food. Oh man, folks, if you didn't get to go, the food was amazing. Freddie is joining me kind of as a last minute thing, and I thought, oh, it'd be cool to have Freddie and Andy both, and they've worked together on other things I've noticed over the course of time.
Andy's great. Andy's wonderful. I love Andy. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I love you too.
Yay, we got the right combo of guests here today, folks. Let me tell you a little bit about, or I've told you about Freddie, and then I have a question for you, Freddie. he started out in anthropology and was encouraged to move in a different direction. So I'm going to ask you the question and then let you just kind of chat away like Andy did, and then we'll let people put up some things in the chat. And yeah, so your experience with anthropology and food must give you a really cool perspective on this topic. How do you see the culinary responsibility of the eater, we the consumers eating food, how do you see that responsibility with seed saving and food sovereignty? Can the consumer play a role in encouraging seed saving and food sovereignty?
Oh my goodness. Can I quote Andy and say that's a heavy question?
Why don't you tell us about how you started out in anthropology, and that'll segue you into the question easily.
First of all, I think one thing people don't understand are chefs are probably the premier anthropologists because they have to convey a story about someone's culture.
Right.
Now when it comes to all of these fancy buzzwords, these buzz terms like appropriation or what have you, food is the only one out of all the arts where if you're Italian, you can cook French food. If you're French, you can cook English food. If you're English, you can cook Indian food. Cooking food is a part of our lives that we experience when we travel. And so I really do believe that chefs are probably the front runners of the biggest anthropologists out there because they repatronize the food and they share the story. It's simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would just be evil to say that chefs appropriate things. We don't. We really don't. And that's my story, is the fact that I tell people I would love to be the only Native American chef to say, nope, you're doing that wrong. Because the French cooks and chefs, for some reason, have every right to tell that to everybody, even the Italian cooks. But for the Native American cooks, we still are trying to find our place in the world. But when it comes to food sovereignty, and when it comes to your heavy question, I really do believe that it's happening now. And with what Andy said earlier is the fact that it's just a matter of what we want to do. And that's what food sovereignty is. And we really don't need any type of legislation or any type of permission from anybody.
Correct.
And like during my presentation last week at Res, I really do believe that food sovereignty really is just based on the individual and what they want to do and how they want to do it and what they want to plant, what they want to eat, what they want to accumulate as an eater, because the eaters really are the fundamental person that makes the food economy, happen.
Right.
So it's an important way to look at how what the eater wants, what the cook wants to give, and everything in that capacity. So it's a very important dichotomy when it comes to the economy, when it comes to who pays, who gets it's just a part of the enterprise. And I think people kind of look at it like, oh, you're in it to make money. No, you're just in it to provide a service. And I think that's where probably the only part of food sovereignty gets questionable is people are like, okay, well, are you trying to make money from it? But it's not a fact of just being like this hard money-making person. the only way the world works, regardless, is you'd have to sell something, you know?
Mm.
And I think that's what that little thread of what people are afraid to admit is, yeah, I'm trying to make a living here too.
Yeah.
So I think those little nuances are really important when it comes to food, selling, but you also, from my perspective, is you want to sell the right food in every
Mhm.
way that I want to sell native corn, I want to sell everything that comes from native businesses and still make them money, make me money, and everybody's happy. And
Right.
yeah.
So, speaking of money, one of the things you mentioned during our session was Freddie's pyramid and the value of different foods based on where they came from, the French food, the Italian food. Do you remember talking about that?
Yes,
That
I
fits in
always
here
do.
perfectly. You segued perfectly into that.
Because it's really important. And again, like I said at Res, I'm not showing off, but when I used to go to New York all the time, I had my favorite restaurant, and I got a bottle of wine, some charcuterie board, some pate, and whether if it's steak à pois or if it's um my mussels, moles manure. I walked out of that restaurant paying $130 just for one person. And I did not feel guilty about it. I just did not feel as if though I was robbed by a bank. But when it comes to French food, Italian food, Japanese food, for some peculiar reason, we're fine to spend that much money. Because you look at French culture, you look at it's so glamorous, like the clothes and everything that kind of comes into play. It looks great. But when you look at Native American food, Ethiopian food, Indian food, as an American, and I know whomever is on this webinar will see, oh my gosh, like they're not, you know, they just don't look like they have money. And that's what the food pyramid that I study is all about. We're okay to spend so much money on French food, on Italian food, Asian food. But when we look at native food, Ethiopian food, Indian food, Mexican food, we tend to look at how their lives look with poverty porn. And it's almost insulting when you say, oh my gosh, I bought enchiladas and beans and rice for $60. It's almost like, it's not good. But at the same time, this is their living. This is their food money, their pizza in Crown Point, And but we just view how these cultures look from what media portrays us to think of Native Americans with Mexicans, Ethiopian, just the way that it visually looks. It's not worth paying any money on. But I'm fine spending all my money on French food or Italian food. And that's what my study is all about. And that's what you mentioned is the fact that regardless of how much we're willing to spend on money, it's the care that I kind of have to kind of backtrack a little and say that's probably what food sovereignty is all about, is the fact that we have the ability to just produce food with so much feeling without regard of how people, what they want to pay for it. We just care about what we're serving people. And I think that's what's more important is you probably will get more emotion from ethnic foods than the more popular foods. And trust me, as spending over 15 years in the professional food business, I think people do care a lot more about giving you food than them getting paid for it. So like with the French foods, the Italian foods, I'm honestly telling you, they just probably don't care what they're giving you. But with something more like Indian food, I love Ethiopian food, so good. Navajo food, we really do care about what we're giving you, and that's what matters. You know, it's the emotion, the heart, the
Right.
it's us, it's what we do.
Right. You put yourself on that plate. Yep.
And that's what makes us vulnerable. And if people view that as a weakness, that's their problem, not mine. But I really do put a lot of vulnerability in my food. Excuse me. I put a lot of vulnerability in my food, and I think that's probably the best flavor for people to have, because it's so much like like Andy and everyone says, there's just so much feeling in it. Even the native pizza, it there's
Yeah.
there's a different flavor to it because there is a lot of emotion that goes into the food, and I think that's what's most important. So yeah, it really, that's where my food sovereignty comes into play.
Yeah.
It really
Well,
does have a lot to
when
do.
foods are grown and harvested in certain regions, certain ecosystems, they take on a flavor of that area, just like a salmon caught in the river is different flavored than a salmon caught in the ocean. There's a difference. The mineral contents are different.
Yes.
And so as you're preparing these foods, you cannot take ingredients grown in New Mexico and make them taste like ingredients, even if they're the same type of ingredients grown in the south of France. They're going to have, by nature, just a different flavor profile to them. And being able to put these native food ingredients back in the hands of the Native American people that the flavor is just going to be much better, because it's going to be coming fresh and local from where they are. And as you say, the chefs put it on the plate. We all know that the best bakers and the best whatever food comes from the person who puts all their love and heart into it, their heart and soul. And you hit that on the head. Yeah.
No, for sure. And I would have to give props to the French for coming up with the term terroir,
Yeah.
because terroir really does it's emblematic, because it's the flavor of the earth.
Right.
And it's one of my favorite words, seriously. And like, for example, like New Mexican green chili will not have the same flavor if it's not grown in New Mexico, because of the minerals, because of the flavor of the earth is basically what's giving the chili. And that's what people admire, that's what people love. Wine, chili, fruits, vegetables, you name it. You're not eating the vegetable or the fruit. You're eating the land and the flavor that the land gives the product. And I think it's just a wonderful concept that the French gave that wonderful word terroir. It really does exemplify the main purpose of what being in the culinary world is about, because we have choya buds, we have cacao beans, we have so many different ingredients from time in memoriam. I hate that term, but that's the only way that I can express, like, it's just what we've always been eating. We've just always been eating the land. Does that make sense?
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, it does.
And the flavor of it, there's nothing that we can change about it. There's nothing that we can do. But when it comes to every single culture, all they are is just eating the flavor of the land.
Right?
I mean,
Absolutely.
we can't. And when we talk about food sovereignty and all these great political terms, all I'm saying is it's just about what you want to eat, how you want to eat it, and how you want to go about eating it. And there's nothing complicated about it. Seriously, there's really nothing complicated about. I don't understand why we have to politicize these terms just based on the idea that that's what you want to eat. And there's no way around it. I want New Mexican green chili. Let's do it, And so I really do feel that there is some type of symmetry that's imbalanced when it comes to politicizing these terms, and that's another discussion. And
Well, I'm from Colorado. And so you mentioned the chilies, and there's quite the debate going on. Even speaking of politics, our governors, United States governors in New Mexico and Colorado have had a little back and forth about which chili is better, Hatch or Pueblo. And,
Colorado, yeah, I've seen this one.
There were even bumper stickers going around a couple years ago in Colorado about eat Pueblo chilies, they're better than Hatch. And then your governor got in front of a car with a license plate on it that said something about Hatch chilies, and it got to be quite silly and fun. But I think the food sovereignty issue, without the politics, and you said it very clearly, it's people getting to eat what they want to eat. And that's where part of the problem lies right now, is that so many people cannot access the food that they want to eat. It's being held back from them, or they live so far away from places where they can buy it or grow it. So in the world of agritourism, we would love to see more people growing the food they want to eat, and then potentially creating community gardens or sharing it with others who aren't so green thumb oriented, and providing that food for their tribal community or at the pizza restaurant. We know Chef Sean has some garden things going with him. Go ahead, Freddie, you were going to.
No, I get it, because when I was a kid, my grandma used to have a house on Cajon Mesa, which was like a back road from Aneth to Cortez. And I remember growing up as a kid, we'd always buy zucchini and squash and corn from the farms that were on that back road. And there was a trading post called Ismay, and we always, but now it's gone. Like to this day, if you take that road, there's no farms, there's no people who are selling anything as far as agriculture. And it speaking on our topic, it would have been such a great agri-tourism area,
Yes.
because there was so many farms.
And the beautiful scenery, the geologic landscapes are beautiful through there. Yeah.
It was great. And now we don't have that. And I just kind of feel that people are really missing out on things that my generation, your generation, experienced as kids, because we really did understand what people were growing. And as far as experiencing the flavors of the earth, we just did not, it really does have an impact of how our flavors deal with serving people with just now I'm doing a job in Penn State. Yeah, Penn State. And the chef emailed me today, and we were planning the menus. And I said, well, we got to get this corn. We got to get this. We got to get these flavors, things that they're not so familiar with. And they don't want the flavors from Pennsylvania. They want the flavors from the Southwest. They want the flavors from here. So
Interesting.
my job as the cook is to give those flavor, the terroir, the
Right.
famous French word, is to bring the flavors from what I've experienced to Pennsylvania, and that's what they admire. That's what they want, and it really is important. It
Yeah.
that's the agritourism, that's the food sovereignty. Like, we just want to taste what we want to taste. That's it, plain and simple. And I
Yeah.
don't understand why it can be so much more difficult by having a lot of political terms. It's that's just not what it's about. It's just, you just want to eat something that you remember, and it's such a good feeling, like, I love talking about it.
Andy, you
As
want to jump in? You can, you're muted.
Yeah.
It looks like you're trying to jump in. Yeah, Freddie, you're trying to put the culture on the plate. And we all know that food is one of those levelers. It makes an even playing field out of the consumer while they're enjoying a farm to table dinner or whatever. And so you bringing the taste of New Mexico to Pennsylvania, they want those tastes, that terroir. They don't want corn grown in Pennsylvania on the plate. They want corn from New Mexico.
Mhm.
And so they can, and that gives the chef and the farmer an opportunity to share their culture and their traditions through that food. And people are noshing away and enjoying, and it's easier to share
Mhm.
lots of things that way. Yeah.
No, it really is. It's the best way for people to communicate, and food has always been that conduit. Food has always been um that variable in people's lives, where, okay, well, oh, this is good. Let's talk.
Right.
That food has just always been that safety net for people to interact, and like, it's just a pleasure to be a part of the business, and it's
So,
fun.
Freddie, you have a cookbook out.
Yes. Oh,
The
I actually have a copy here.
Oh, yay.
Yeah,
The
I've
New
never
Native Kitchen.
had the New Native Kitchen.
And I was glimpsing through a copy and noticed there's, I just really love the way the cookbook is laid out in general. I love the pieces back and forth in it. But you have a section on the Native American pantry. And I was
Mhm.
looking at that as someone who's not real familiar with many Native American ingredients. And I love that you have this little section that says, here are some foods that might be hard for you to find. So tell us about why you decided to put that in your cookbook.
Well, the premise of the cookbook is, let me tell you a long story, but I'll try to make it short. Is the first time that I've ever been introduced to the food business was Jada de Laurentiis, and she got a lot of flack for doing, like, Italian food from a Safeway or from a Vons, right? And the thing is, I understood it. So 98% of the recipes in my cookbook you can actually get at a supermarket, whether if it's a Ralph's, whether if it's a Safeway, whether if it's a what's the other big,
What was it? Piggly Wiggly is in the South. Is that still in existence?
whatever supermarket is around your corner,
Yeah.
you can get all these ingredients. And the sad part about it is, when you buy the canned hominy, there's going to be dust on it because no.
I'm glad you said that.
But the thing is, everything in the cookbook you can get at a supermarket, but there are a few ingredients that you have to order online. And like choya buds or prickly pears, just kind of like the more uh, 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 hard to get ingredients. But
Right.
like the hominy salad, the Three Sisters salad, you can get that tomorrow, like or tonight. Everything is accessible. And that's what I really like about it, because you cannot teach people about Native American food, or you cannot teach people about Italian food if they don't have access to it.
Right.
And that's what's important is okay, look, regardless, people can look down on you and say, oh, you bought Italian food at the Safeway, or you bought Native American food at the Safeway. Yeah, that's their problem, not yours. All you want is the flavor, because every grocery store has a dried chili section, a Mexican spice section, and it really does have this accessibility for people to buy groceries. And to be just a flat out food snob and say, oh, you can't buy Mexican food at the Safeway or Native American food at the Safeway, it's just condemning others to try to do what they want to do as far as cooking. And because I've always loved my local grocer, you know, regardless of who they are, and they've always fed me, and they've always provided me food to eat. And it's so Jada de Laurentiis really did open that door for me, as far as to say, look, she tried to sell Italian food from the Safeway or from the Vons, and I'm trying to sell Native American food from the Safeway and the Vons. And that's really kind of what it comes down to. It's like, look, you can buy hominy, you can buy corn, you can buy beans, you can buy squash, you can buy pretty much almost every single Native American ingredient in the supermarket. And to add on that, during the Columbian Exchange, 70% of the world's ingredients comes from the Western Hemisphere. So when I really don't like to say his name because I always get flack for it, but when Columbus came to the Western Hemisphere, and the amount of food that he took back to the Iberian Peninsula, you know, we call that the Columbian Exchange. But I don't want to give him that credit because he was just such a mean person. He was a
Yeah, really.
So if 70% of the world's ingredients came from the Western Hemisphere, can you imagine how little of ingredients Europe had?
Yeah, yeah.
So the enormity of flavors that came from the Western Hemisphere to the human population, I think says a lot. And the supermarket really does, yes, the supermarket really does show that just it's an important part of our lives. It's so funny that I say that, because we talk about food sovereignty and everything in that capacity, but I really do think that when we talk about flavors, what we want to eat, what we want to, you know, it's all what we want to eat, period.
Right, right. Well, thank you very much, Freddie. I think
It's so emotional. We're talking about food, we're talking out loud.
I'll get emotional,
Yeah.
then I will. It's an interesting topic today, that you know, where we get our food from and what we eat and how it can impact so much of our lives. It's important. It's really important. So I'm going to have you both stay on for just a little bit longer. Bianca, go ahead and change the slide. Thank you, Freddie. So I just wanted to acknowledge that the funding for the agritourism program within IENTA has been provided by Native American Agriculture Fund, who support tremendous amounts of work in all kinds of agriculture and agritourism in this world. And then let's go to the next slide where we'll do Q&A. Did want to remind everyone to join us for the American Indian Tourism Conference. It's going to be in Durant, Oklahoma, where there is a lot of yummy food, October 2nd through the 5th. You can see there are the contact pieces of information. And let's go ahead and see about Andy, we'll have you unmute. And then Bianca, do you want to have people just type into the chat what their question is, and we'll read it and see, look at the chat to see what kind of questions are coming up. We've had some people that were commenting on things. Polish food was another one that seemed to be a food that is not highly elevated, although it's delicious. Oh man. My grandmother used to make this knish kind of thing that, no, that wasn't what it was called. Anyway, it was Polish, and we kids would, she had to hide these rolls in her dryer one time because she want to put them where we couldn't find them, and she had to go to town for the day and left a bunch of us. We were all 12, 13 years old, and man, we turned that house upside down looking for those rolls. We didn't look in the dryer. So she's a smart woman.
That's a good place to put something to like keep it warm.
Yeah, it stayed warm, and yet it didn't. Yeah, thank God nobody needed to do any drying.
Yeah.
And then another person, Andy, was agreeing with you that it's not so many dishes. So many dishes evolve over time, and the important thing is that is Indigenous made. And I think that's a good point that Carol made there.
Yeah, definitely like the most exciting thing I think happening now within this Native food movement is the entrepreneurship and, all the businesses that are coming out and creating this access to Native American food and Native made and produced food. And also the restaurants too. I mean, Freddie, you're going to be opening something pretty soon, and that's really excited. I'll just be honored to add your restaurant to my restaurant list on my website. But I think the restaurants inside our communities too are a really important part to agritourism as well. I mean, you can go visit a farm, you can go visit a winery, a brewery, you can see how this food is made, and then for sure there's probably going to be a Native restaurant that brings these ingredients into the kitchen and puts them out on a plate. I mean, I just went to like a program, like reception dinner sort of thing. We here in Albuquerque, we have the New Mexico Community Capital. They work with a lot of small Native businesses to help get, it's a business incubator. So they help get folks started. They help with different resources and stuff like that. And I actually went through that whole program too, because I really want to like get Toasted Sister to a legit business point, instead of just like this little hobby that I do on the side.
But it looks legit.
But I went to their one of their programs, and it was a program just on farmers, getting Native farmers like on that business level, helping them with their books, helping them with their branding. And we had on Aguilar, Tina Aguilera. Tina, she's the new owner of she's the owner and creator of Itality restaurant here in Albuquerque that just opened a couple months ago. But she utilizes as many Native and local produce and products as she can in her restaurant. So, I think that's really important for a lot of Native restaurateurs, is to bring in a lot of Native owned, Native grown ingredients. I know that's something that folks like Awanmi, they do a lot. Tokabe in Denver, they do a lot, and they've actually expanded to include like a whole what do you call it, like a warehouse sort of thing. Like you can go to their website and actually taste some of these foods that all of us are talking about and celebrating. So it's really an exciting time right now in this whole movement. A lot of folks are making that access we've been talking about lack of access for so long. Well, now we've got
Now you've got it. Mhm.
have business people just doing it.
They're starting to
that
get
access.
more support for it, and that just brings on more of it and opens up the doors for more people to try. We do have a comment from Carol. If I try to pronounce her last name, it will be sad. So Carol G, thank you for your comment. She's wondering about your perspective on this. We have Native American associates at work who have been generationally disconnected from their heritage, so don't know traditional foods. We have shared cookbooks, including Freddie's and Andi's podcast for the curious. Do you have any other suggestions for where Carol might lead her people to, her associates to, for learning more about Native American food?
I would say Native America Calling.
Yeah.
Well, I had to step away.
I would say the same thing, Andy. Yeah, like I think what
Yeah,
you
there's
do
a
is
lot there for people to
Right.
find.
just for
Freddie,
discussion.
what
Yeah.
about the work you're doing with Sean Sherman at the kitchen?
Well, what Sean and I are getting ready to do is I'm basically gonna be like, because Sean can't be two places at once, right?
Mhm.
So when people want a chef in Alaska, Hawaii, or California, Washington, Oregon, I will be the West Coast affiliate for Sean, and doing classes and lectures and things in that capacity. So it's kind of, it's what I do, but at the same time, I can really say, I think sadly that for people to learn more about native foods, it really just comes down to us. And if people can't feel that they have access to more periodicals or more information, then we, Andi, myself, Sean, we really have a lot more to do to get, to get stuff out there, because I kind of feel like we're on a roll to where we have this ability to talk about our work. We have this
Right.
ability to talk about what we're doing. But if it isn't enough, we're clearly not doing as much as we thought we were doing, I guess. Right, Andy? Like,
Well, it's a big job. It's a big, ginormous
really is.
task, for
It
sure.
really is. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question or a comment from one viewer to to Carol, who was just commenting. I'm being asked, ask Carol what tribes or regions she is working with. The ingredients will vary, which is absolutely true. So Carol, to help with that question of yours, what tribes are you working with? If you're still on with this. She is Menominee and have shared those foodways. So Carol, that's up, isn't that up by Kettapanin Kitchen? Isn't she in your neighborhood?
Monoman, that's in White
Menominee. Yeah, oh, she has
in Minnesota.
associates all over Cherokee, Navajo, and correct, she's in Chicago. Menominee is Chicago area.
Okay.
Chef Walks First was on a webinar with us a couple weeks ago, and she's doing some great work and has expressed to me a big concern about trying to find the native ingredients. Here she's got a restaurant in Chicago and trying to find Native American ingredients that fit her flavor profiles that she wants. She sometimes has to get in the car and drive half the planet to find all these things before returning home. So what do you guys know about Choctaw, Wampanoag, Cherokee, Navajo?
I know the Wampanoag officially created the first what is it? Clam chowder without the flour.
Oh,
And that's what their claim to fame is as far as culinary is concerned. Navajo, Choctaw, are all basic, it's kind of like general knowledge based on their terroir of ingredients. So, but I love the Wampanoag for their claim to fame for the clam chowder.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No, the original ingredients for clam soup, as it was called, was just clam, seawater, and Jerusalem artichoke. That's it.
Oh,
So when the potato came from Ireland, they just added the potatoes and changed it a little bit and added the flour and butter, and that's how it became thick and stewy with the cream sauce. The Brits really did like their cream sauce.
yeah,
Yeah.
very good. Well, folks, does anybody have any more questions, or do either of our guest speakers have anything else they'd like to bring forward about food and enjoying food in the world today?
I would say support all the native food restaurants and entrepreneurs out there. There's a lot of them. I think you can find a lot of those foods in lists at the Intertribal Agriculture Council. They have the American Indian Foods program, which is just really a database of a bunch of Native Indian foods approved and stamped products that they keep tabs on their website. Also, Takabe has a big list and warehouse where you can purchase some of these foods. On my podcast website, toastedsisterpodcast.com, I have a map of Native-owned restaurants that I keep updated.
It's great, guys. You got to check it out.
Yeah. So, and then also on Native America Calling, which is where I am now, which is why I had to duck out of the webinar real quick and get our show, get a guest on our show today. We just started the show about 8 minutes ago, but I host and produce a show every month called The Menu on Native America Calling, which is just a roundup of food news for the month. If there's somebody who won an award, a restaurant that opened, some kind of, something happening with food sovereignty, I'll get guests on to talk about that. Usually it happens at the end of the month, but it's a special series that's getting some recognition out there, that I love to, bring that into my full-time work job here.
Yeah. And Freddie, tell us, where can we find your cookbook? I know that Bianca put the link in for Amazon, but are there other ways we can find your cookbook?
Oh yeah, you can get it from Barnes and Noble, all of the biggies like Target, whatever. But
Market, whatever.
But I would say if it would benefit the independent booksellers, I know the Native American bookstore in Albuquerque. I don't know the name of the store. I'm sorry.
Red Planet.
Red Planet, yes. The independent bookstores have it, because I know for a fact that Abrams, the publisher, is really focusing on selling it through independent bookshops. But
yes,
unfortunately, you can buy it for less at Amazon.
we've got 2 comments in the chat saying Birch Bark Books. There's another place that you can get them. Red Planet in Albuquerque, which you just mentioned, is being touted. So it is a well done book. It's got great photos. Makes me super hungry, and I don't know.
let me just say this, that the photos were shot by the guy who did Ina Garden's latest book.
Oh,
So,
nice.
so this book is, a spring chicken.
Yeah, you two travel in fancy circles. Forget the
Yeah.
French cooking. You guys have some great friends.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think, think we've kind of reached our limit on how we've got more time, but we do want to make sure that we get you both off to your work. I want to also remind you that IENTA's 25th annual American Indian Tourism Conference is going to be taking place in Choctaw Country at the Choctaw Casino and Resort in Durant, Oklahoma, October 2nd through the 5th. Registration is open, and Bianca did us a nice favor and put the link into your chat, so you can click on it and get signed up right away. I did my first AITC conference this last year and was blown away by how much I learned and how cool it was. It was really a great conference. So
No, everyone there's such a great thing. But let me just plug myself a little.
sure.
I will be at Penn State next week.
Okay.
And the lectures will be open. So if anybody's in Pennsylvania or they want to come to the school, I will be doing free lectures the entire week next week. So you can come.
Are they being recorded?
I am not sure about that. I will inquire about that.
Yeah, send us the links if they do.
Yeah.
We'll put them out there for people to enjoy. That would be awesome.
Because I know I have to do a lecture for Native American history, anthropology, and also economics. So 3 different lectures that are catered to what they want me to talk about based on Native American food.
Oh, good. That's interesting.
Sounds like a task, but we'll see what we can do.
It's not work if you love it, right? That's what they say.
Love it.
Well, thank you both very much for joining us today. We are going to go ahead and we've got a little bit more time, but I think in the interest of just getting people moving on with their day, and this has been lively and engaging, and I appreciate both of you and the time that you've shared with us today. So thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you to our audience for participating, and we'll see you next time on IENTA's webinar series.